I think Bitcoin still has more upside to go. I'm looking at a target of 25.5, which is up here. And then eventually, I even think we could get as high as around 28.5 or so.
Welcome to the Daily Crypto. Gareth Soloway joins us once again and shares his thoughts on the current market conditions and where he thinks Bitcoin and Ethereum are headed. So keep watching until the end because there are plenty of opportunities that you could take advantage of. Let's start the video.
The bottom line is, it's what does Jerome Powell say? What does he guide, considering there's no meeting till September? We know that the economic data is starting to weaken. So is he just going to tell us that it's going to be data dependent from here on out, in which case that could bring the dollar down, that could bring expectations for future rate hikes down? Or is he going to continue to say, hey, listen, we are going to keep raising at 50 basis points and go gangbusters until inflation is at X%? And then the market, I think, would react very, very poorly to that. So I think that's number one. And then GDP is for sure number two, because that's really the goalpost on what does that mean? And that's coming that day after the Fed statement. So my guess is the FOMC, Jerome Powell, will know the GDP number ahead of time. So you can almost gauge what that GDP is going to be by what he says.
With the FOMC statement coming out next week, listening to what Jerome Powell has to say about GDP growth will be crucial, because it will decide where all markets are headed, including cryptocurrencies.
So basically what we have is we had a breakout on Bitcoin in the near term right here. And you saw a close above with a confirming move following it. And what we've done since then is you've kind of created this little bit of a channel of consolidation right here, which is actually, I mean, a lot of investors say, oh my goodness, we've been down, pretty much 2, 4, 5 days out of the last 6 on Bitcoin. But notice how it's a very slow kind of grind lower. Today, it's getting a little bit more fast. But for the most part, this is actually what we would refer to in the technical analysis world as bullish consolidation. And so what I'm really watching is this 21.8-ish level. I want to see where it closes. It can close just below that, but you don't want to see it trade down in this range too much longer before it starts to move up. But I'm in the camp that over the next, rest of July into August, I think Bitcoin still has more upside to go. I'm looking at a target of 25.5, which is up here. And then eventually I even think we could get as high as around 28.5 or so right up here. This is kind of my max move though. This downsloping trend line comes all the way from the all-time high. So notice how these two lines are right in the same area. So I think that, again, that would be your maximum upside. Your shorter term target would be 25.5. So I am bullish near term on Bitcoin, even though I'm mid-term bearish.
We saw Bitcoin break through the 21.8 resistance, but since then it has fallen to the 21.8 mark once again. But as we know, previous resistance likes to act as a support, which is what we might see here. According to Gareth, if Bitcoin manages to hold above the 21.8 level, prices are likely headed toward 25K or even the 28K mark.
If the Fed on Wednesday is not as hawkish, if let's say they open the door to saying, hey, we're going to slow down, maybe we're going to pause, that would be a risk-on scenario where all of a sudden you see this risk on in the stock market, NASDAQ stocks get another leg up, and that would also lead to another move up in Bitcoin. So I think the weakening dollar would kind of coincide with that as well. We see those type of things move together. The more dovish the Fed, the more they're not tightening monetary supply, so the dollar doesn't necessarily get stronger. So for me, that's exactly it. The Fed decision Wednesday, GDP on Thursday, those would be the driving forces that would probably lift Bitcoin.
If the Fed shows signs of relief and drops its guard, we'll see traditional markets and the crypto space go up, combined with the weakening dollar. Enjoying the video so far? Hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to show your support.
Yeah, I don't read into it as a bearish signal. If anything, I kind of look at it in a contrarian view, is where you had one of the big whales holding, I think, $1 billion of Bitcoin. He unloaded a majority of his stake. And, if we've already seen that being distributed into the system, into the Bitcoin market, and investors have bought that up, maybe that's a small positive in all fairness, that the market was able to absorb that. And I know we have, some other, I think Mt. Gox might dump 150,000 Bitcoin. I want to see the market, the Bitcoin market, absorb that. Maybe it goes down a little bit, but if it can absorb those type of sells, then what it tells you is even in a bear market, there are still buyers out there. And that's a very longer term bullish sign, even if it's not a very short term bullish sign.
Tesla revealed their earnings report that they sold 25% of the $1 billion worth of Bitcoin they bought. The market took this news quite well and did not suddenly tank, which is an indicator that the bottom is near. Now that Tesla has declared they made $64 million in profits from Bitcoin, the market sentiments have become a bit better than before.
Yeah, so I'm a little skeptical on these type of merges and these type of things in the near term, mainly because investor sentiment is the #1 thing that rules price, right? So yes, this is probably keeping people from shorting it right now. They don't want to step in front of a freight train if it takes off.
Right.
We've seen an amazingly big bounce in Ethereum, but the one thing I'm seeing here, and I'll flip over to my chart and show, is that basically we have this kind of bullish consolidation. So you do see a bull flag forming. This is a very clear bull flag. Now, I don't want to see this candle break down too much. Right now, it's right at the lower end of that flag. But basically, the upside is somewhat limited here. I mean, there's the first resistance level, which is right here around 1700. So we're not too far away from that. And then even if it gets through 1700, around 1900 is the next big resistance level. So I'm in the camp where I look at this and I say, okay, yes, there's some upside left. And I believe that Bitcoin, Ethereum, they will see upside. But you could actually maybe see the run occurring into the merge and then a sell the news event. And I think that is the likely scenario here, where maybe we get to 1900 and then once you see that merge occur, then the selling takes back over.
With ETH merge just over the horizon, Gareth believes the short sellers are staying away for now, but it won't be long before the merge happens and we see investors selling the news. As the chart suggests, there isn't a lot of room on the upside for Ethereum, and a sell-off from the resistance areas is very likely.
I think this is a huge aspect that most investors in crypto don't understand. It's the need for some sort of regulation, positive regulation, safety measures being put in. Again, if you want the big money to come in, and we're talking pension funds with trillions and trillions of dollars, and just putting 1% in crypto, that's a game changer. And if you want institutions to get involved. And so the fact is, I mean, there's a couple reasons. #1 is I really truly believe politicians see the amount of money that they're spending and they're thinking, okay, well, we're going to spend even more money. So that makes Bitcoin even more viable as it eventually deflates the dollar. And I think also you have to think a lot of these candidates that are running for re-election or election, they have to get votes. Well, right now, a lot of the younger generation is super into crypto. So if they can talk positively about it, it brings more of a vote towards them. So it's honestly, who cares? I'm in the position of I love long-term crypto, so I don't care why they're doing it. I just want to see positive reform, and that is the best thing long-term for Bitcoin.
As much as crypto enthusiasts don't want regulations, it's necessary for the growth of the entire space. When the government sets clear guidelines around crypto, bigger institutions will be open to investing in Bitcoin, bringing in hundreds of billions of dollars into the crypto ecosystem.
I continue to be a gold bug. I mean, again, since the start of the year, I said gold would be a better performing asset than Bitcoin and the stock market. So far, I've been right, but I honestly have been disappointed with gold's performance recently. I think the fact is that if you think about the Fed maybe potentially getting inflation under control, and again, I think it's not that they're getting it under control, but that I believe we've seen peak inflation, that it does create a scenario where people say, okay, well, if inflation is going to start to come down, do I still need the safety of gold? I mean, what if inflation, in this perfect world, inflation goes back to 2%? Well, what's the point of gold then, right? That's what people are thinking. That's why gold has underperformed here. I don't think that fantasy will last very long, in my opinion. So I do think that gold will perform. I do think it'll perform better over the next 6 months into year end than crypto as well as the stock market. Long-term Bitcoin will far outperform gold though.
Since the beginning of 2022, we have seen gold outperform cryptocurrencies and stocks. But this is because of rising inflation. And now that we have seen peak inflation, it's very probable that the Fed tries to bring it much lower. In this scenario, gold will take a hit. Gareth does believe that gold will continue to perform better for the next 6 months at least. But in the long term, Bitcoin will be the ultimate winner.
I do think that Gensler has made it pretty clear that he believes almost everything aside from Bitcoin is a security. The question is, what is the framework going to be for that? What type of regulation will be imposed on these things? And I think that's something that honestly I'm not really super clear of myself yet. And I think they're doing a very poor job of making the market, the crypto market, aware of that. And that's actually probably one of the reasons why you're seeing crypto underperform. There is this risk about, well, what does this mean? How are these going to exist? What's the world look like after we get this regulation out there? And I think, again, the faster we get a framework, it's almost like a buy the news event where they finally tell us and we can all breathe a sigh of relief and saying, okay, well, it's not the end of the world. Let's buy.
The head of the SEC, Gary Gensler, has classified ERC-20 tokens as securities, which is concerning, to say the least. What the future has in store for everything other than Bitcoin all depends on how the government decides to put regulations into action. Is Bitcoin going to 25 or 28K as Gareth believes? How do you think the SEC is going to tackle securities? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. See you guys in the next one.